I'm so excited and so passionate for today's episode. If you are new here, I'm so happy that in this giant universe of the interwebs, we have found each other and we get to expand and journey together. We're going to be talking about a topic that is very, very controversial, but I don't think it's necessarily controversial. It's just that it's not often talked about. And when it is talked about, I have rarely heard highly educated people talking about this topic. Typically, when I hear people talking about this topic, it's people who have never actually done it themselves or even know anyone who's done it themselves. And what we're talking about here is astral travel. Some people think this is demonic. Some people think that it is fake. Some people equate astral travel to doing drugs. How wild is that? I'm someone who is super, super passionate about astral travel. I've been astral traveling for many years now. I first taught myself how to astral travel during the 2020 lockdown when we all had so much time on our hands. I found some incredible esoteric books. I hired some magical, mystical teachers, and I started embarking on this journey. I can't really tell you what led me to astral travel, honestly. Many years ago, I found myself really struggling to emotionally regulate, so I would go to sound baths every single week. If you've never been to a sound bath, it's pretty much where you go and lay down and take a nap for about an hour or two while somebody plays healing frequencies at the front of the room. And they play this on typically ancient instruments of all different sorts. Crystal bowls are a really, really popular sound bath instrument, but there's so many different sound bath instruments that people use. I myself have facilitated sound baths for many years, and I use a variety of different ancient instruments and drums and sounds to create a healing experience for the mind, the body, and the soul. Sound baths that I was going to were really deeply healing because they included what you would call ET healing or soul recovery. There's so many different ways to talk about this. The facilitators at the front of the room that were playing music, they would not only play music, but they would also facilitate deep extraterrestrial healing, deep soul healing, and advanced soul recovery work. If you weren't aware of this, then you would not even know that this is happening, but because I'm a very, very sensitive soul and a very advanced soul, I was able to quickly realize that these sound baths were a lot deeper than other ones. It's almost like I was receiving Reiki or receiving energy healing during the sound bath. This is exactly how I facilitate myself. I incorporate all different forms of healing so that our mind, body, and soul can completely transform in a gentle and expansive way. I found myself completely addicted to going to these sound baths as well as offering healing in this way. I noticed that every single week I was able to emotionally regulate a little bit better. I had higher levels of inner peace and therefore higher levels of productivity. This is exactly what I wanted, and I was hooked, and I needed to learn more and to discover more. So I embarked on a deep and profound journey of Native American mysticism as well as Middle Eastern mysticism and Asian mysticism. I read books on these different categories. I talked to experts and gurus of these different schools of thought, and I also became certified as a practitioner of these different energy healing modalities. The reason that I was so incredibly hooked is because I noticed that there was 1 week that I skipped my sound bath for whatever reason. I think I slept in that day or something. And that week, I felt like I regressed in my emotional regulation journey. I can't tell you exactly the progress that I was seeing on a day-to-day basis, but I was just feeling subtly elevated every single day. And that's what kept me going back to these sound baths over and over and over. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, I would go to these sound baths and literally just fall asleep. I didn't remember anything that was happening, and this is how it was for many years. Over time, I started to shift my lifestyle in order to activate my third eye. I wanted to lower the amount of toxins that I was exposed to. I changed my toothpaste to fluoride-free toothpaste. I got a shower filter and a bath filter so I wasn't experiencing fluoride and chlorine from the water anymore. I started to eat all organic, and I started to do these 21-day third eye activation challenges. Again, I don't know exactly what was compelling me to do this, but something was compelling me to heal my mind, my body, and my soul. I was feeling so much better from the sound baths, and I wanted to just feel better and better and better. The more that I activated my third eye, the more that I started to have visions in the sound bath experiences. I also started to have really profound and deep visions during breath work. I would have visions of my soul leaving my body. I could literally experience my soul traveling outside of my body and going into this other realm that was kind of floating above me. There's this one breathwork experience that was so incredibly profound. I remember my soul entering this other realm, and it was like all of my friends that I'd ever made in this lifetime, all of these people that just wanted to vibe and party. We were all just dancing around this fire, and I don't even remember if there was music in this space or not, but I just remember being at this like galactic dance party with people that are all on the same vibe, and all of us just feeling so incredibly happy and at peace, and not an ounce of insecurity or fear or judgment or anything that I experience at parties in this realm, because I get social anxiety. It was so incredibly fascinating, and my soul experienced that in this breathwork journey. Whether you think it's real, whether you think it's imagination, whatever you think it is, I got to experience a galactic dance party for 30 or 45 minutes at some point in my life, even though it was in a breathwork journey. And that experience completely changed how I saw myself, how I saw other people. I felt so much more confident and so much more empowered to be myself. Still can't even put into words like exactly how these experiences change you, but because I was having these positive experiences when I was in breathwork journeys, and now when I was at the sound bath experience, I wanted to continue journeying. I wanted to be able to tap into it on my own without having to pay to go to a breathwork journey or a sound bath experience. I wanted to be able to tap into the abundance of my consciousness and the abundance of my mind just alone in nature, just completely by myself. And I wanted to learn how to do that. That's what led me to not only reading about astral travel as much as I possibly could, but also doing as many astral travel exercises as possible. I wanted to learn how to get back to that place, like the astral dance party place, while being completely sober and just connected to myself. This is where I actually got to experience galactic past life regressions. This is a personal one-on-one experience that I did with a galactic shaman. In this experience, I did over 300 past life regressions where we would go into each of the chakras and basically find the parts of the soul that have been most hurt, that need the most healing. So these were profound experiences, and I was completely sober, of course, during this whole entire time. So it really felt like I was doing ayahuasca when I was meeting with this person every single week. I cannot tell you what it felt like after doing a galactic past life regression and then trying to just go cook dinner or something. It was such a wild experience. And this experience taught me so much about how to travel. I got to travel with another person while they were literally guiding me and watching over me and making sure that I was safe. So I got to experience a lot of safe travel, which is kind of like having someone go out biking with you when you still have the training wheels on, and they're encouraging you every step of the way and helping you and answering your questions and showing things to you, and just, really just giving you that personal support in mastering your inner world, really your consciousness, your psychology, and all of the parts of your soul. It was after these experiences that I was able to really astral travel on my own. I had my first solo astral travel experience while I was taking a bath. I was taking a salt bath, of course, and I actually heard that there's a show or a movie that talks about astral traveling in salt baths. So I thought that that was so interesting because for me, it was always easiest for me to astral travel in a salt bath. I think it's just easier for me to relax my body, relax my mind, and then my consciousness can begin to expand and explore. Again, I was completely sober during these experiences, and they were the most profound experiences of my entire life. I didn't tell a soul because I did not want to be institutionalized. I honestly felt I knew that they were the right experience for me. I knew that I was connecting with angels and with incredible spirit guides, but I knew that talking about it would make me just sound completely crazy, and I was so scared of destroying my image, and I was so scared of sounding crazy that I just kept most of this to myself, or I only shared this with my past partner in my past relationship. So in 2020, my life completely changed because I became a hypnotherapist by day and a spiritual coach by day, and by night I was astral traveling every single night. I would do about a 2-hour journey consciously in the bath, and then I would say prayers in order to astral travel and allow my soul to travel all throughout the night, every single night. I was gaining so much knowledge and wisdom, but I didn't feel like I was ever really integrating any of it because I wasn't sharing it and I wasn't talking about it outside of my relationship. The further I went into my spiritual awakening and into my spiritual journey, the more it became evident that my partner and I just weren't really on the same page, and we actually had to split up. Even though this was really, really sad for me, I knew that this was the best choice for me, and I was able to navigate this breakup with so much more ease because I was astral traveling throughout the process. When I would get in fights with this person, or when I would feel torn about how things ended or things like that, I could always astral travel and I could gain guidance from my angels, from my spirit guides, and I felt that even though this was a painful experience, it really was for my best and for their best. Because I no longer had this relationship where I could talk about all of these things, I now felt even more isolated in my spiritual awakening process, and that's what allowed me to start to look for information about astral travel and hypnosis and soul journeys online. Started to study soul journeys, and there's actually a book I think that's called Soul Journeys that is so incredibly good. So many books that talk about the theories and the topics that pertain to astral travel. Becoming Supernatural by Joe Dispenza is another one, as well as all of the books by Dolores Cannon. So here I was, a hypnotherapist by day, astral traveler by night, studying people like Dolores Cannon and Joe Dispenza, and wondering, how did they become the people that they became? I asked these questions to my spirit guides, and I quickly realized that they connected with their spirit guides and they followed their spirit guides. I also realized that they talked about this information, they shared this information, and they guided others through these practices beyond just themselves. Dolores Cannon was able to be such an influential figure in our consciousness evolution because of all of the books that she wrote, because she did thousands and thousands and thousands of journeys with people. And that's when I found myself working as an addiction recovery counselor. I got to share breath work, sound healing, energy healing, hypnosis, and even past life regressions and astral travel journeys. I felt so passionate about sharing these practices with as many people as I possibly could, so I actually found myself working at multiple rehab facilities at the same time. Throughout the day, I would meet with groups of people as well as in one-on-one personal individual sessions. I was seeing sometimes hundreds of people a day for spiritual work, past life regressions, astral travel, and soul healing. Within a few years, I had clocked over 10,000 hours of hypnosis, past life regressions, astral travel. All of these words can be interchangeable and mean the same thing. I got to work with people from all different parts of the country and all different parts of the world. I got to work with men who were so incredibly skeptical of these practices, as well as men who were so familiar with these practices. I got to work with women who identified as sensitive, as highly intuitive, and spiritual. I also got to work with women who did not resonate with any of those words at all. I got to work with people who were bringing in 7 figures a year. who managed entire companies or ran multiple businesses. And I got to share these practices with people who were homeless, who didn't have a dollar to their name and had no idea how they would get their next meal. Now, going into sharing these practices, I had no idea what to expect, and I had no idea what I would experience. Even when people try to explain this to me now, I still am baffled by these concepts because they are just so esoteric, so out there, and honestly created an entire spiritual awakening for me as a practitioner and a facilitator. And remember, I was astral traveling all the time at this point, but I wasn't talking about what I was experiencing. I wasn't telling anyone about the things I was seeing or anything like that. I was literally keeping all of this to myself. I remember the very first time that I took someone into an astral travel experience and they saw one of the beings that I myself had seen. After this session, we drew this being and I was shocked that it was identical to an extraterrestrial species that is very, very known amongst the extraterrestrial community. But this person didn't believe in aliens. They did not have any idea what this thing was that they saw. They had absolutely zero knowledge of any of these topics, and I didn't even talk to them about any of it. We were doing work surrounding addiction recovery, and these beings came up in the work that we were doing in blocking this person from having free will, from achieving their highest potential, from being the person that they want to be in this lifetime, and being able to choose their habits. But what's so fascinating is that those were the exact beings that were also blocking me. In my own past life regression journeys and astral travel journeys, I could clearly see these specific extraterrestrial beings that were blocking me from my highest potential. Not all extraterrestrials are bad, because I could also clearly see extraterrestrial beings that were helping me reach my highest potential. I completed the healing with this person on this day. They felt instantly lighter and better, and their life got exponentially better. And I never told them about who the beings were that they saw or anything beyond us just drawing them out and me saying, oh, yes, that was the monster that was blocking you. And then we just kind of went on, and it didn't come up again in further sessions. But it did come up with other people, actually a lot of other people. In my experience of over 10,000 astral travel journeys where I'm guiding or facilitating a journey for another person, I was able to spot some really, really interesting patterns. I would say about 20 to 30% of these journeys, if not more, included witnessing extraterrestrial beings. And these beings that were witnessed were not different from each other. I'm calling them extraterrestrial beings. You can call them angels, spirit guides, beings from above, beings that are in the Bible, religions, things of that nature. I had no idea who these beings were, but it was very evident and obvious to me that my different clients from different backgrounds and different cultures and different religions were all seeing the same things when we would astral travel. Now, another pattern amongst all of these people that were seeing these things is that they were all people who were highly advanced souls. And the reason that I knew that they were advanced souls is because they were people who had experienced trauma in their lifetime, whether big or small traumas. They were also people who were highly sensitive, were actually told that they are too sensitive or too emotional at different points in their life. And there are people that just felt deep down intuitively that they are destined for more and have a huge potential in this lifetime. And that knowing, when you don't know how to get there, can make you feel like a loser. It can make you feel like the worst person, that there's nothing that you can do in order to get better or align with your future. You can feel absolutely frozen, and you can have, it's like your insecurity can grow every single day. So if you're experiencing any of these symptoms, you are in luck, because perhaps that is an indicator that you are also a highly, highly advanced soul. A soul that was not put here in order to just navigate this realm, but a soul that was put here in order to elevate the consciousness of humanity. A soul that was put here in order to blaze a trail for yourself that has never been blazed by anyone else. Highly advanced souls are meant to be comedians, artists. We are meant to be podcasters. We're meant to be sharing our life through a personal brand, starting yoga studios, or sharing meditation practices, right? Highly advanced souls are sharing the things that are elevating the collective consciousness. And when you are a highly advanced soul and you don't know it, and you don't know to be in your soul path and your soul potential, life can feel so incredibly painful for you. This was the experience of so many of the people that found themselves working with me, connecting with ancient practices for soul healing to try to feel lighter so that they could feel better and no longer be bogged down by bad habits or impulses or negative thoughts and things like that. So when I guided these exact people through these consciousness journeys, we would come across spirit guides and beings in the higher realms. Now, can you imagine what this was like for me to experience as a girl? I'm just a girl, guys. And suddenly I'm witnessing all of these beings in higher realms through the eyes of different people. I'm witnessing all of this truth about our human origins and our astral journeys and galactic wars that have been in our DNA and in our past for millennia. I was shook. Shook doesn't even begin to cover it. My ego could not handle what I was experiencing as the facilitator. Through the minds and eyes of my students, I was able to put together this puzzle of the origins of humans and the origins of human suffering. And this took me on a whole new roller coaster of spiritual awakenings. Because the work that I share in the past life regressions and astral journeys that I share is so incredibly deep and incredibly potent. I truly feel like I'm standing on the shoulders of giants every single day in getting to share this work, or even just talk about this work and these lessons and these stories. If it wasn't for people like Dolores Cannon and Joe Dispenza, I wouldn't have the foundation in order to have channeled this method of connecting with our spirit guides and our galactic truths. Of course, my ego was like, oh my God, you are so cool. You are like the goddess of the earth and you are a priestess and blah, blah, blah. And so I always kept all of this stuff a secret, because can you imagine how embarrassed I would be to tell people that I was a galactic priestess, even though it might be true according to one of my past life regressions? Can you imagine meeting someone in a Starbucks or something, or in a coffee shop, and they're like, hey, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm a galactic priestess. What do you do? You know, I just was not ready to put myself out there like that and to start to talk about astral wisdom in our everyday life. There's so many misconceptions about astral travel and astral wisdom still to this day. Over the years of sharing my spiritual journey, I've gotten so many different comments from people saying that, do I think I'm better than people now that I have had a spiritual awakening or something like that? And I'm like, girl, a spiritual awakening is a really, really painful process. It definitely doesn't make anyone better or worse than anyone. It's just a process that some of our souls go through. I've also had people tell me that astral travel is like doing drugs and it's a form of escapism. And for people who hate this world, we like to astral travel to other worlds, and yeah, it's really just like escapism. And this could not be further from the truth. I only astral travel when I, in this world, need some support, some advice, some guidance. You know what I'm talking about. You know, when you're facing a situation or an obstacle and you're like, oh my gosh, I wish that I could just have an angel on my shoulder that can tell me that everything's going to be okay, and to just go to the right or to the left next time I see a fork in the road. And this is exactly what it's like to be connected to your spirit guides. I actually have a wild story about what it's like to be connected to your spirit guides once you have that astral travel initiation. I was once lost in this realm, in this 3D realm. I was very, very lost on an ATV out in the middle of the desert. And at the time that I was lost, the people that I was with were actually forming a search and rescue party. They were going to call for a helicopter to start to look for me even. I was really, really lost. I had never been to this area before, and I had no idea how to get back to the camp. I was left out in the desert, and the reason I was left out there was because of a broken ATV situation. It wasn't my fault that I was lost and left out there, but as the hours continued to turn, I quickly realized that the people who left me there were not able to find me, and that I was lost with an ATV. I didn't know how to ride an ATV, I didn't know where I was, and I was absolutely terrified. So I did what I know how to do, and I cried out to God, and I cried out to my spirit guides, and I said, please, please help me. I'm in a life or death situation. I don't have food. I don't have my phone. I don't have water. I've now been in the desert in over 100 degrees for many hours, and I don't know how to get back. Please help me. And I experienced the craziest thing. Like, I'm getting chills right now and getting choked up even telling this story. And again, I got comments when I shared this story online saying that it was completely fake and that I was all just making it all up, but it is not fake. The craziest thing happened. While I was on the ATV, just sitting there crying and crying out to God and saying, please, please help me. I don't know if I'm going to survive the night here. I heard God. I heard my angels. I heard a voice. And it said to me, it's gonna be okay, I got you. Follow my voice, just follow me. And so I followed this being. I can't even explain to you what, like, because I couldn't see a person in front of me or anything like that, but I just knew that I was following something, and I would follow it up a trail, and then it would tell me to turn onto another trail. And it was almost random, and I felt like I was going in a circle, honestly. Like, if I was having a crazy schizophrenic break, this was it, right? I was like, okay, I mean, I'm either gonna die here on my own, or I'm gonna just randomly follow this voice because I'm so dehydrated and hope for the best. And this voice was taking me in the weirdest direction. Like, we would go down one path, and then we would just go left, and then we would go right, and then we would go another. It was so random, and I was like, there's no way that I'm being led anywhere right now. Like, I am probably being led to my death, honestly. And as I came over this final hill, I saw the campsite. I was led all the way directly back to the campsite, all on my own. I don't even want to say on my own, because obviously I wasn't on my own, but there were no people there. And even all of the people that were about to go out and look for me, who had been looking for me, they were like, how did you get back here? Like, how did this happen? Because you were so far out there, and there's no possible way that you would have been able to find your way back. So how did I find my way back? Being connected to my intuition, to my spirit guides, to the astrals has literally saved my life so many times in so many different ways. Because of these experiences and all of the talk from organized religion about spirit guides being demonic and things like that, I had a full religious awakening as well. 2020, during all of that time that we had, I also decided to dive deep into religious texts all over again. The religion that I was raised in required that you read all religious texts every single day of the year. So throughout a 365-day period, you go through the same exact religious texts every 365 days. But But I was feeling called to go so much deeper, so I decided to actually practice Ramadan and read the Quran cover to cover and learn the religion of Islam, as well as the different belief systems within Christianity. I read the Bible, read religious and ancient Hindu texts, read banned religious texts like the Book of Enoch, super ancient religious information like the Emerald Tablets, as well as starting to practice rituals all the way back from 40,000 plus years ago that our ancestors used to practice. Rituals, songs, and prayers that have been proven that we used for the past 40,000 years. How crazy and wild is that? I have been on such a deep quest for truth. I have been completely unattached from my belief system throughout this quest. If the spirit guides that guided me to that campsite are technically demons, I am fully surrendered and willing to understand how that thought process was created. So I was determined to study extensively. I got to learn so much about safety practices within astral travel and ancient religious practices. I got to learn so much about the true meaning of demons and demonic energy and how to protect ourselves from these energies. I know there's so much conflicting information out there, and I would say that that's because this information is divine, but the human brain is compartmentalized into different parts. We have the mammalian part of the brain, the reptilian part of the brain, we have our instinctual parts of our brain, our conscious brain, our subconscious brain, so many different parts. And the way that our brain digests divine information is going to be different depending on the person, and the way that we then teach that digested information is going to be really different. So it's kind of like we're playing a giant game of telephone regarding spirit guides and astrology and spirituality and religion and demons, and all of us are trying so hard to hold on to what we know is true. By the way, if none of this resonates with you or if all of it conflicts with your beliefs, that is completely okay. I think it's really important to surround yourself with people who think similarly and with people who think differently than you. I've shared these practices with people that are pastors, that are so incredibly religious, that do not believe in anything regarding New Age spirituality, because the practices that I'm talking about here are not New Age spirituality at all. Connecting with our consciousness is not some magical, mystical thing. It's something that we all would have known how to do in the past. It's something that used to be an everyday part of our society. We used to experience rites of passage and ceremonies and astral travel all the time. All of the ancient petroglyphs and hieroglyphs that we can find throughout North America actually depict a human being astral traveling. So this is exactly how our ancestors navigated the wild, nature-filled world that they maybe could not quite understand. This is how they gained that understanding and how they gained that wisdom. Many people put these practices inside the category of New Age spirituality because there isn't much funding surrounding the research of these practices. That doesn't mean that they are not proven. When these practices are researched, the results of the research is absolutely ground shaking. It changes the whole entire world. If you were to read just one study of consciousness, you would become incredibly advanced at manifestation and esoteric knowledge and gaining your intuitive wisdom. There are studies all the way back from the 1940s talking about how our brain creates our reality and the consciousness traveling experience and the pineal gland being the seat of the soul. This information is not even New Age. This information has been shared and used by our government since the beginning of our government's creation, as well as our ancestors since the beginning of human creation. I think the reason that the modern world loves to denounce things like astral travel and past life regression so heavily is because this information has been widely lost, and therefore we don't feel comfortable with it anymore. We're scared of this information. We're scared of our own consciousness. We're scared to witness the truth. I've heard someone say that to me, that they don't want to do this because they're scared of themselves. They're scared of the universe and of the truth. And this is exactly why I say that if you're listening to this, you are an advanced soul. These practices attract advanced souls. Not everyone is ready to become the best version of themselves, to reach their highest potential in this lifetime. I once heard an influencer say something, and it completely changed my life in that moment, and I realized that I resonated with it, so I'm going to repeat it here right now. I don't want to keep coming back to this life over and over and over and trying on these lessons over and over and over. I am determined to reach my highest potential in this lifetime. I'm going to say it again. I am determined to reach my highest potential in this lifetime. And not everyone resonates with that, and that's okay. But if you do resonate with that, I encourage you to do the things that our ancestors have done since the beginning of time to reach their own highest potential. And that is learning how to control their consciousness, how to travel within their own thought realms, how to connect with their spirit guides and their soul team, how to gain the wisdom from your higher self, from your inner self, from God, source, whatever you want to call it, to know exactly what next steps you need to take. This is exactly what you were put here to do. Whatever you took away from this episode, I encourage you to ask yourself, what would your life look like if you had a better relationship with nature, with your soul, with your inner self, with your intuition? And if you are ready for your life to start looking exactly like that, I do have a few spaces available that I can support you in elevating in your soul journey. Click the link in the description box below to set up your free consultation with me, where I can give you my personalized and professional guidance on exactly what your next steps can be so that you can reach your highest potential in this lifetime and always feel connected to Source, God, and your guidance team. I absolutely love answering questions about these topics because there's just so much misinformation out there that has been spewed from religious organizations unintentionally, but just wanting to make the world a better place. I completely understand. But for those of us who want a little bit of extra clarity on demons, angels, soul teams, spirit guides, what your highest potential is, how to know your intuition versus your impulse, you are in the right place. So much of this knowledge has been lost, and I'm so happy and honored to be here sharing it with you. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Expansion, and I will see you in our next episode. Toodaloo.